Have you ever felt like life is passing you by? Like you're stuck in a story that someone else has written? Maybe you've worked hard to check all the boxes, get a degree, find a job, build relationships, only to wake up one day and wonder, is this all there is? What if I told you that this feeling isn't a dead end, but a door? A door to something deeper, more authentic, and more fulfilling than anything you've ever imagined. In today's video, we're diving into a topic that could quite literally change your life: the power of rewriting your own story. Whether you're feeling lost, stuck, or just curious about how to live more authentically, this video is for you. We'll uncover how to confront the shadows of your past, redefine your priorities, and create a life that truly reflects who you are. This isn't just self-help, it's a call to action to reclaim your narrative, to take charge of your journey, and to awaken to the life you were meant to live. But before we dive in, let's make a pact. If you're ready to challenge your beliefs, embrace your truth, and start living a life of purpose and authenticity, hit that like button right now. It's a small action, but it tells me in the algorithm that you're here for this kind of transformative content. And if you find this video valuable, consider subscribing to the channel for more life-changing insights. Don't forget to hit the bell icon so you'll never miss an update. Also, if you're feeling extra generous today, you can support this channel by hitting the super thanks button down below. Every donation helps us create more inspiring content, and your contribution makes a real difference. Now, let's step into the most important conversation you'll have with yourself, the one about the story you're writing and the life you're creating. From the moment we're born, life seems like a pre-written script handed to us. We grow up being told who to be, what to aspire to, and how to measure our success. Study hard, get a good job, climb the ladder, settle down, and repeat. This formula is so ingrained in our culture that we rarely pause to ask, is this even my script? For Carl Jung, one of the greatest psychologists of the modern era, the answer lies in a deeper exploration of what it means to truly live. According to Jung, the first half of life often feels like a series of preparations, a rehearsal, if you will, for the real journey, which begins only when we dare to ask who we really are. And that question, as simple as it sounds, is the catalyst for profound transformation. In our younger years, we learn how to play the roles expected of us. We create what Jung calls the persona, a kind of social mask that helps us navigate relationships, fit into societal norms, and gain acceptance. For instance, think about someone who grows up in a family that values academic success above all else. From an early age, they might internalize the idea that their worth is tied to their grades, their college acceptance, and later, their career achievements. On the surface, this person might look successful. They earn degrees, land a prestigious job, and gain the respect of others. But beneath the mask, there's a nagging sense of emptiness. They might wake up one day and think, how did I even get here? That's the persona at work, a role they've mastered, but one that doesn't necessarily reflect their authentic self. The persona isn't inherently bad. In fact, it's necessary. It helps us establish connections, gain stability, and understand the rules of the world. But Jung warns that the danger lies in mistaking the persona for our true identity. Imagine an actor who becomes so absorbed in their role that they forget who they are off stage. This is what happens when we let societal expectations dictate every aspect of our lives. The problem isn't the mask itself, it's our inability to take it off and examine what's underneath. Beneath the persona lies the shadow, a term Jung used to describe the parts of ourselves that we repress, ignore, or deny. These could be fears, desires, insecurities, or even strengths that don't fit into the neat image we present to the world. For example, consider a woman who's always been the peacemaker in her family. She avoids conflict at all costs, believing that her role is to keep everyone happy. Over time, she represses her own anger, her need for boundaries, and even her ambitions, because those parts of her don't align with the peacekeeper persona. But those repressed parts don't just disappear, they live in the shadow, influencing her choices in subtle and often destructive ways. Maybe she lashes out unexpectedly, feels resentful in her relationships, or develops a persistent sense of dissatisfaction. The shadow doesn't go away simply because we ignore it. In fact, the more we avoid it, the more power it holds over us. Jung believed that facing the shadow is essential for growth. It's not easy looking at the parts of ourselves we'd rather hide can be uncomfortable, even painful, but it's also liberating. Take, for example, the story of someone who's always played by the rules, doing everything right, but feeling deeply unfulfilled. They might discover, through therapy or introspection, that their shadow contains a creative side they've suppressed for years. Maybe they've always wanted to paint, write, or play music, but those pursuits felt impractical or frivolous. By confronting the shadow, they begin to integrate those repressed desires into their lives, finding a sense of wholeness they never thought possible. This process of self-discovery often begins in what society labels a midlife crisis. Jung saw this phase not as a breakdown, but as a breakthrough, a chance to shed the old definitions of success and happiness and embrace a more authentic path. For many, this shift is triggered by external events, a career setback, the end of a relationship, or a milestone birthday that makes them reflect on the passage of time. But the real transformation happens internally. It's the moment when you start asking, is this all there is? Am I living the life I truly want? These questions might seem like the beginning of chaos, but Jung viewed them as invitations to awaken. It's as if the life we've built, the career, the relationships, the routine starts to feel like a house with shaky foundations. The cracks appear slowly at first, but eventually, they demand attention. And when we choose to confront them, we open the door to something extraordinary. The process Jung called individuation. This is the journey of becoming whole, of integrating all the parts of ourselves, the persona, the shadow, and everything in between into a cohesive, authentic self. One of the most striking examples of individuation can be seen in public figures who've undergone dramatic transformations. Think of someone like Steve Jobs, who after being ousted from Apple in his 30s, went through a period of reinvention. That period wasn't just about launching new ventures. It was also about reconnecting with his creative vision and redefining his purpose. When he returned to Apple years later, he wasn't just the brilliant technologist he'd been before. He was a more integrated version of himself, someone who understood the value of both innovation and human connection. But individuation isn't just for visionaries or artists. It's a process that's accessible to everyone, and it often begins with small but meaningful steps. Imagine a man who's spent decades climbing the corporate ladder, only to realize that his job doesn't bring him joy. He starts to explore hobbies he once loved: gardening, volunteering, spending time with his family. These activities might seem minor, but they represent a shift in priorities, a move away from external validation and toward inner fulfillment. Jung emphasized that this transition requires courage. Letting go of old definitions of success means stepping into the unknown, and that can be terrifying, but it's also an opportunity to rewrite your story. Consider the metaphor of a tree. In its early years, a tree grows quickly, competing for sunlight and space. But as it matures, its growth slows, and its roots deepen. It becomes more stable, more resilient, and more capable of bearing fruit. In the same way, the second half of life invites us to grow inward, to deepen our understanding of ourselves and our purpose. This inward growth often involves redefining our values. What once seemed essential, money, status, approval, begins to lose its luster. Instead, we start to prioritize things like meaningful relationships, creative expression, and personal growth. For some, this might mean leaving a high-paying job to pursue a passion. For others, it might mean repairing fractured relationships or dedicating time to a cause they care about. The specifics vary, but the underlying shift is the same. Life becomes less about doing and more about being. Ultimately, Jung's philosophy reminds us that the journey of self-discovery is never finished. There's always more to uncover, more to integrate, and more to learn. But the reward for embarking on this journey is profound. By embracing all parts of ourselves, the light and the dark, the known and the unknown, we gain the freedom to live authentically. And in doing so, we discover that the life we were meant to live was within us all along, waiting to be awakened. From the moment we begin to understand the world around us, societal expectations start shaping who we are. As children, we absorb messages from parents, teachers, peers, and the broader culture, learning what is valued and what isn't. These messages guide our behavior, shaping our choices in ways we often don't question. A child who excels at academics might be praised for their intelligence, leading them to prioritize grades and achievements over other parts of their identity. A naturally curious child might be scolded for asking too many questions, teaching them to suppress their inquisitive nature. Over time, these experiences form the foundation of what Carl Jung called the persona, a social mask that allows us to navigate the world effectively, but isn't necessarily a reflection of who we truly are. The persona plays a vital role in early life. It helps us adapt to social norms, build relationships, and find a place within our communities. For example, a teenager who grows up in a family that values hard work and financial success might adopt the persona of a diligent, goal-oriented individual. They choose a practical career path, perhaps in finance, medicine, or law, because it aligns with the expectations placed on them. On the surface, this persona serves them well. They excel in school, land a prestigious job, and gain the admiration of their peers. But underneath the polished exterior, there might be a growing sense of unease. They may start to question whether their choices reflect their true desires, or if they've simply been following a script handed to them by others. Consider the story of a young man who dreams of becoming an artist but is discouraged by his family, who view art as an impractical pursuit. He sets aside his passion and pursues a degree in business instead. Over time, he climbs the corporate ladder, earning a six-figure salary and the respect of his colleagues. To everyone around him, he appears successful, but he feels a persistent sense of emptiness. Despite his achievements, he's haunted by the feeling that something is missing. This is a classic example of the persona at work. The mask he wears allows him to fit into the world's expectations, but it also obscures his authentic self. The persona isn't inherently harmful. It serves as a necessary tool for survival in a complex social world. Imagine a child entering school for the first time. They quickly learn that certain behaviors, like sharing toys or following instructions, are rewarded, while others, like throwing tantrums, lead to consequences. These lessons shape their persona, teaching them how to function within a structured environment. As they grow older, the persona evolves, incorporating the values and expectations of their culture, family, and peer group. For instance, someone raised in a community that prizes athletic achievement might develop a persona centered around sportsmanship and physical prowess. Another person growing up in an academically driven household might prioritize intellect and discipline. However, while the persona helps us navigate life, it can also become a prison. When we become overly identified with the roles we play, we lose touch with the parts of ourselves that don't align with our social mask. For example, a high-powered lawyer might suppress their creative side because it doesn't fit the image of a serious, professional individual. A stay-at-home parent might downplay their ambitions because they feel it's inconsistent with the nurturing role they've adopted. Over time, these suppressed aspects of our identity don't disappear, they remain in the background, creating tension and dissatisfaction. This tension often becomes more apparent in midlife when the cracks in the persona begin to show. Jung believed that the first half of life is devoted to building up the persona, establishing a career, forming relationships, and meeting societal expectations. During this time, we're focused on external achievements, often at the expense of our inner selves. But as we approach midlife, something shifts. The roles that once felt fulfilling begin to feel restrictive. The goals we've worked so hard to achieve no longer bring the same sense of satisfaction. This is when we start to question the authenticity of the life we've built. For instance, think about someone who has spent decades working in a demanding corporate job. They've achieved everything they set out to: promotions, accolades, financial stability, but they find themselves dreading Monday mornings. They begin to wonder if their career choice was ever truly theirs, or if it was influenced by the expectations of their parents or society. This sense of disillusionment often marks the beginning of what is commonly referred to as a midlife crisis. But Jung argued that this isn't a crisis at all, it's an opportunity. The cracks in the persona are invitations to explore the parts of ourselves we've ignored or suppressed. These cracks can manifest in various ways. Sometimes they appear as a feeling of restlessness, a vague sense that something is missing. Other times, they're triggered by significant life events, like the loss of a loved one, a divorce, or a career setback. For example, a woman who has spent her life prioritizing her family might find herself questioning her identity once her children leave home. Without the role of caregiver to define her, she's forced to confront the parts of herself she's neglected: her ambitions, her interests, and her dreams. At first, this process can feel unsettling. Letting go of the persona means stepping into the unknown, which can be terrifying, but it's also an opportunity for growth. By examining the cracks in our social mask, we can begin to uncover our true selves. This doesn't mean abandoning the persona entirely. It's still a valuable tool, but it does mean recognizing it for what it is, a role we play, not the entirety of who we are. One of the most relatable examples of this process can be found in popular culture. Take the story of a character like Walter White from Breaking Bad. Walter begins the series as a mild-mannered high school teacher, a persona he's crafted to fit the expectations of society. But as the series progresses, the cracks in his persona begin to show, revealing a darker, more complex side of his personality. While Walter's transformation is extreme and morally ambiguous, it illustrates the idea that the roles we play are only one facet of who we are. When the persona begins to crumble, it forces us to confront the deeper, often hidden aspects of ourselves. In real life, this process might look less dramatic, but no less profound. Think of a retired athlete who transitions into coaching, discovering a passion for mentorship they never explored during their playing career. Or a successful entrepreneur who decides to leave the business world to write a memoir, reconnecting with a love of storytelling that was buried beneath years of professional ambition. These are examples of people breaking free from the confines of their persona and embracing a more authentic version of themselves. Ultimately, the cracks in the persona are not signs of failure but of growth. They remind us that life is not a fixed trajectory but an ongoing journey of self-discovery. By acknowledging the limitations of our social mask and exploring the parts of ourselves we've suppressed, we open the door to a deeper, more fulfilling existence. This process requires courage. It's not easy to confront the parts of ourselves we've ignored, but the reward is a life that feels genuine, meaningful, and uniquely our own. The concept of the shadow, as Carl Jung described it, represents the hidden aspects of ourselves, the fears, desires, and insecurities that we bury deep within because they don't align with the image we want to project to the world. These elements of the shadow aren't inherently bad or evil, but they are aspects of ourselves that we've been conditioned to reject or ignore. The shadow is formed early in life, often as a result of societal, familial, or cultural pressures. As we grow, we learn which parts of ourselves are acceptable and which aren't. Over time, the unacceptable parts are pushed into the unconscious, where they remain out of sight but not out of mind. Imagine a child who is naturally outspoken and assertive. Perhaps this child's family values obedience and quiet compliance, discouraging any behavior that challenges authority. Over time, the child learns to suppress their assertiveness because it brings disapproval or punishment. That assertiveness doesn't disappear, though it becomes part of the child's shadow. As an adult, this individual might struggle with passivity, feeling incapable of standing up for themselves in situations where assertiveness would serve them well. They might even envy or resent people who display the very qualities they've repressed, without realizing that this resentment is a projection of their own buried desires. Jung believed that the shadow, if left unacknowledged, exerts a powerful influence on our lives. It shapes our behaviors, often in ways we don't fully understand. For instance, consider someone who has a deep-seated fear of failure. They might bury this fear beneath a perfectionist persona, presenting themselves as highly competent and successful. On the surface, this perfectionism might seem like a strength, but it could also lead to burnout, strained relationships, and an inability to take risks. The unacknowledged fear of failure drives their decisions, keeping them in a constant state of overachievement and anxiety. Ignoring the shadow doesn't just affect individuals, it impacts relationships as well. When we fail to confront our shadow, we often project it onto others. Take, for example, a person who struggles with feelings of inadequacy but refuses to acknowledge them. Instead of addressing these feelings, they might criticize or belittle others, projecting their insecurities outward. This dynamic can create a cycle of conflict and misunderstanding, as the person projects their shadow onto those around them without realizing the source of their behavior. Jung's famous quote, "He who looks outside dreams, he who looks inside awakens," speaks directly to the importance of confronting the shadow. Looking outside ourselves, whether for validation, success, or fulfillment, keeps us in a dreamlike state, disconnected from our true selves. Awakening, according to Jung, requires looking inward, facing the parts of ourselves we've ignored or rejected. This process isn't easy, but it's essential for personal growth and authenticity. One powerful example of someone confronting their shadow might be a high-achieving professional who, after years of chasing external success, begins to feel a profound sense of emptiness. On the surface, they've done everything right. They've climbed the corporate ladder, earned accolades, and gained respect. But beneath the surface, they've suppressed their deeper desires for creativity, connection, or even a simpler way of life. Through therapy or self-reflection, they might begin to uncover the aspects of themselves they've ignored. Perhaps they realize that their drive for success was rooted in a childhood fear of not being good enough. By facing this fear and acknowledging their shadow, they can begin to make choices that align with their authentic self, rather than the expectations they've internalized. Another example is a person who struggles with anger. Instead of acknowledging their anger and understanding its source, they repress it, telling themselves that good people don't get angry. This repression doesn't make the anger disappear, it manifests in other ways, like passive-aggressive behavior, chronic stress, or even physical ailments. The turning point comes when they allow themselves to confront their anger, recognizing it as a valid emotion rather than something to be ashamed of. This process might involve exploring the experiences that triggered their anger in the first place, whether it's a sense of injustice, unmet needs, or unresolved pain. By bringing their shadow into the light, they gain the freedom to express their emotions in healthier, more constructive ways. The shadow isn't just about negative traits, it can also contain positive qualities we've suppressed because they don't fit into the roles we've adopted. For example, someone who's always seen themselves as pragmatic and responsible might repress their playful or imaginative side. They might dismiss hobbies or creative pursuits as childish or unproductive, not realizing that these activities could bring them joy and fulfillment. Confronting the shadow in this context means giving themselves permission to explore these hidden aspects of their personality, discovering new dimensions of who they are. Ignoring the shadow can create a false sense of security, but it also limits our potential. When we refuse to confront the parts of ourselves we've buried, we become disconnected from our true essence. This disconnection can manifest as anxiety, depression, or a pervasive sense of dissatisfaction. Jung likened this to living in a house with a locked attic, no matter how comfortable the rest of the house is. The locked door creates a sense of unease. The only way to find peace is to unlock the attic and confront whatever's inside. One of the most relatable aspects of the shadow is its universality. Everyone has a shadow, and everyone struggles with the tension between who they are and who they think they should be. Consider the example of a parent who sacrifices their own dreams to provide for their children. While this sacrifice might be noble, it can also lead to resentment if the parent feels they've given up too much of themselves. That resentment might be directed at their children, their partner, or even themselves. By acknowledging their shadow, the dreams and desires they've repressed, they can find ways to honor their own needs while still fulfilling their responsibilities. Another example is the artist who abandons their craft because it doesn't align with society's definition of success. They might convince themselves that their art was a frivolous hobby, but deep down, they feel a persistent longing to create. Ignoring this longing might lead to a sense of emptiness or bitterness, as they watch others pursue their passions while they remain stuck in a life that doesn't feel authentic. Confronting the shadow means facing the fear of judgment or failure that kept them from pursuing their art and finding the courage to create, even if it means redefining what success looks like. The process of integrating the shadow is deeply personal, but it often begins with self-awareness. This might involve journaling, therapy, or simply taking the time to reflect on patterns in our lives. For instance, someone who notices they're frequently jealous of others might explore what that jealousy reveals about their own unmet desires. Or someone who finds themselves constantly seeking approval might question why they feel the need for external validation. These moments of introspection can be uncomfortable, but they're also the key to unlocking our potential. Ultimately, confronting the shadow is an act of self-love. It's about accepting ourselves as we are, rather than as we think we should be. By bringing the shadow into the light, we free ourselves from its unconscious influence, allowing us to live more authentically. Jung's philosophy reminds us that the parts of ourselves we fear the most are often the ones that hold the greatest potential for growth. When we embrace the shadow, we awaken to the fullness of who we are, discovering a depth and richness that can't be found by looking outside ourselves. It's only by looking within that we truly begin to live. What many call a midlife crisis is often portrayed as a chaotic and desperate phase of time when people impulsively buy sports cars, drastically change their appearance, or leave long-term commitments in search of something elusive. While these stereotypes might carry a grain of truth, they fail to capture the profound and transformative potential of this stage in life. Carl Jung reframed this so-called crisis as a critical turning point, a moment when we are invited, sometimes forcefully, to reevaluate our lives, confront our unacknowledged truths, and move toward a deeper sense of authenticity and wholeness. Rather than a breakdown, it can be seen as a breakthrough, one that leads to greater alignment with who we truly are. In the first half of life, much of our energy is focused outward, building a career, forming relationships, achieving goals, and meeting societal expectations. These pursuits are necessary. They give structure to our lives and help us understand our place in the world. But as we approach midlife, something shifts. The external markers of success that once motivated us, promotions, accolades, material wealth, begin to lose their luster. The roles we've played so diligently may start to feel constricting, as if they no longer reflect the person we've become. This is the moment when the cracks in our carefully constructed identities start to show, and the questions we've been avoiding for years rise to the surface. Am I truly happy? Is this the life I want to live? Who am I, beyond the roles I've been playing? Take, for example, a man who has spent decades climbing the corporate ladder. He has achieved everything he set out to: a six-figure salary, a corner office, the respect of his peers. Yet, as he approaches his 50s, he finds himself dreading Monday mornings, unable to shake the feeling that his work lacks meaning. At first, he brushes it off as burnout, taking a vacation to recharge. But when he returns, the emptiness remains. This isn't a failure or a flaw, it's an awakening. His discontent is an invitation to look inward, to question whether his career, once a source of pride and purpose, still aligns with his values and aspirations. Similarly, consider a woman who has devoted her life to raising a family. Now that her children are grown and independent, she feels a sense of loss, as if her purpose has disappeared. She wonders what's next, struggling to remember who she was before she became a mother. This phase isn't just about finding something to do to fill the void. It's about rediscovering parts of herself that were set aside for years. She might remember her love of painting or writing, or realize she has a passion for helping others in a way that goes beyond her family. These realizations can lead to a profound transformation, one that enriches not only her life but also the lives of those around her. Jung referred to this process of self-discovery as individuation, the journey toward integrating all parts of oneself, both the persona we show the world and the shadow we've repressed. Individuation is about moving beyond the masks we wear and embracing our full, authentic selves. It's a process that requires courage, because it often involves letting go of the identities we've built and stepping into the unknown. But it's also deeply rewarding, leading to a sense of wholeness and fulfillment that can't be achieved through external validation alone. One powerful aspect of individuation is the acknowledgement and integration of the shadow. For many people, Midlife is the first time they're forced to confront the parts of themselves they've been avoiding. Perhaps it's the realization that they've been living according to someone else's expectations, rather than their own. Or maybe it's the acknowledgement of repressed desires, fears, or insecurities that have been shaping their decisions from the shadows. By bringing these elements into consciousness, they gain the freedom to make choices that are aligned with their true values, rather than being driven by unconscious patterns. For instance, someone who has always avoided conflict might realize that this pattern stems from a fear of rejection or abandonment. They might begin to explore how this fear has influenced their relationships, keeping them from expressing their true feelings or setting boundaries. Through therapy or self-reflection, they can learn to confront this fear, developing the confidence to advocate for themselves in a way that feels both authentic and respectful. This isn't just a personal transformation, it can have a ripple effect, improving their relationships and creating a more balanced dynamic with those around them. Practical tools can be incredibly helpful during this stage of life, providing a framework for self-exploration and growth. Journaling, for example, is a powerful way to process thoughts and emotions, offering clarity and insight into what's truly important. A person might begin by writing down the questions that keep them awake at night. What do I want from the next chapter of my life? What parts of myself have I neglected? And why? What would I do if I weren't afraid? By revisiting these questions over time, they can start to identify patterns and themes, uncovering the deeper truths beneath their surface-level concerns. Meditation is another valuable tool, creating space for stillness and introspection. In a world that constantly demands our attention, meditation allows us to turn inward, connecting with our inner selves in a way that can feel grounding and restorative. Even a few minutes of mindfulness each day can help reduce anxiety, improve focus, and create a sense of inner peace that makes it easier to navigate the challenges of midlife. Therapy can also play a crucial role, offering a safe and supportive environment for exploring difficult emotions and confronting the shadow. A skilled therapist can help individuals identify the unconscious beliefs and patterns that are holding them back, guiding them toward greater self-awareness and empowerment. For someone struggling with feelings of inadequacy, for instance, therapy might reveal that these feelings stem from childhood experiences of criticism or neglect. By addressing these wounds directly, they can begin to heal, developing a more compassionate and accepting relationship with themselves. The journey of midlife awakening isn't without its challenges. Letting go of old identities and stepping into the unknown can be deeply unsettling, and it's natural to feel fear or resistance along the way. But these challenges are also opportunities for growth. As Jung famously said, "What you resist not only persists but will grow in size." By facing our fears and embracing the discomfort of change, we create the conditions for transformation. One of the most inspiring aspects of midlife awakening is its potential to inspire others. When someone makes the courageous decision to leave an unfulfilling career, end a toxic relationship, or pursue a long-buried passion, they become a living example of what's possible. Their journey can encourage others to reflect on their own lives, sparking a ripple effect of growth and transformation. For example, a man who leaves his high-pressure job to start a small business based on his love of woodworking might not only find personal fulfillment, but also inspire his children to pursue their own passions, regardless of societal expectations. Ultimately, the midlife awakening is a reminder that it's never too late to change course. Whether it's starting a new career, exploring a creative pursuit, or simply learning to live more authentically, this stage of life offers endless possibilities for growth and fulfillment. It's not about erasing the past or regretting the choices we've made, it's about building on the foundation of our experiences, using them as a springboard for the next chapter of our journey. The transformation that takes place during midlife isn't just about finding new paths, it's about becoming more fully ourselves. By embracing the process of individuation, integrating the shadow, and aligning our actions with our values, we create a life that feels not only meaningful but also deeply true to who we are. And in doing so, we awaken to the extraordinary potential that lies within us, discovering that the second half of life can be just as vibrant and fulfilling, if not more so, than the first. As we move through life, There comes a time when the things that once seemed so important, the accolades, the promotions, the external markers of success, start to lose their appeal. What used to motivate us no longer feels as fulfilling, and the goals we chased for years no longer seem to matter as much. This shift in priorities is not a sign of failure, but a natural and necessary evolution. It is the moment when we begin to transition from seeking external validation to finding inner fulfillment. It's not about abandoning ambition or achievements, but about redefining what success truly means and aligning our lives with what matters most to us. Imagine life as a tree. In the early stages, the tree grows rapidly, reaching toward the light and competing with others for space and resources. Its energy is focused on outward growth, producing more branches and leaves. But as the tree matures, its growth slows. It begins to deepen its roots, anchoring itself more firmly in the ground. This deeper rooting gives it stability and resilience, allowing it to weather storms and continue bearing fruit. Similarly, as we mature, we begin to shift our focus from outward achievements to inward growth, from what the world expects of us to what feels authentic and meaningful. For many people, this shift begins with a sense of dissatisfaction or restlessness. Take the example of a corporate executive who has spent decades climbing the ladder, achieving financial success and professional recognition. On paper, they have it all: a prestigious job, a comfortable lifestyle, and the admiration of their peers. But despite these accomplishments, they feel a persistent emptiness, as if something is missing. They may start to question whether their work truly aligns with their values, or whether they've been pursuing goals that were never really theirs to begin with. This questioning can be unsettling, but it's also the first step toward redefining success and finding deeper fulfillment. The transition from external validation to inner fulfillment often involves a reevaluation of priorities. For the corporate executive, this might mean stepping away from the high-pressure environment of their job and exploring ways to make a more meaningful impact. Perhaps they transition into community service, using their leadership skills to help a nonprofit organization. By focusing on service rather than status, they find a sense of purpose that was missing in their previous career. This shift doesn't negate their past achievements but builds on them, creating a new chapter that feels more aligned with who they are. Similarly, consider the story of a lawyer who spent years pursuing a career that others deemed prestigious. They excelled in their field, earning respect and accolades. But deep down, they always felt drawn to art. For years, they dismissed this passion as impractical, something that could never be more than a hobby. But as they approach midlife, they begin to feel the weight of their unfulfilled creative desires. After much reflection, they make the bold decision to leave their legal career and become a full-time artist. This transition is not without challenges. There are financial uncertainties, and they face judgment from those who don't understand their choice. But for the first time in years, they feel alive, connected to a sense of purpose and joy that had eluded them. These examples highlight an important truth. Redefining success is not about abandoning ambition, but about pursuing goals that are deeply personal and meaningful. For some, this might mean focusing on relationships, nurturing the connections that bring love and support into their lives. A person who once prioritized career advancement might realize they've neglected their family or friends. By making a conscious effort to invest in these relationships, spending more time with loved ones, showing appreciation, and being fully present, they find a source of fulfillment that no professional achievement could provide. For others, the shift in priorities might involve exploring creativity or personal growth. Someone who has always followed a linear career path might take up a hobby they've always been curious about. Whether it's writing, gardening, or learning to play an instrument, these pursuits might seem small or insignificant compared to their previous accomplishments, but they can have a profound impact on their sense of well-being. Engaging in creative activities allows people to express themselves, connect with their inner world, and experience a sense of flow and joy. This redefinition of success often requires letting go of old narratives and expectations. Society places a high value on external achievements, wealth, status, and productivity, and it can be difficult to step away from these measures of success. But true fulfillment comes from aligning our lives with our values. even if it means challenging societal norms. This might involve making unconventional choices, like downsizing to live a simpler life, changing careers late in life, or prioritizing experiences over material possessions. Take, for instance, a couple who decides to sell their large home in the suburbs and move to a small cabin in the mountains. For years, they worked tirelessly to afford their lifestyle, but they realized it left them little time for each other or the things they loved. By simplifying their lives, they free themselves from financial stress and create space for hiking, gardening, and spending quality time together. This decision might seem counterintuitive in a culture that equates success with accumulation, but for them, it's a step toward a life that feels richer and more meaningful. The transition to inner fulfillment is not always easy. It often involves facing fears and uncertainties, as well as confronting the parts of ourselves we've neglected or repressed. For someone who has spent their life seeking approval from others, the idea of prioritizing their own needs and desires can feel selfish or uncomfortable. But as Carl Jung said, what you resist not only persists but will grow in size. By confronting these fears and challenging the stories we tell ourselves, we can begin to let go of what no longer serves us and embrace a new way of being. Practical tools can help navigate this transition. Journaling, for example, is a powerful way to clarify values and priorities. By writing down thoughts, questions, and reflections, we can uncover patterns and gain insight into what truly matters to us. Meditation and mindfulness practices can also create space for self-awareness, helping us connect with our inner selves and quiet the noise of external expectations. Therapy can provide guidance and support, offering a safe space to explore fears, challenges, and aspirations. One of the most profound aspects of this shift in priorities is the freedom it brings. When we stop chasing external validation and start living in alignment with our values, we experience a sense of liberation. We no longer feel the need to prove ourselves to others or meet arbitrary standards of success. Instead, we can focus on what brings us joy, meaning, and connection. This freedom allows us to live more authentically, embracing the fullness of who we are. In many ways, the shift in priorities is like pruning a tree. By cutting away the branches that no longer serve us, we make room for new growth. It's not about erasing the past, but about creating space for what comes next. The journey toward inner fulfillment is deeply personal, and there is no one-size-fits-all formula. But by listening to our inner voice, challenging societal expectations, and embracing the courage to change, we can create lives that feel true to who we are and what we value most. And in doing so, we discover that success is not about what we achieve, but about how aligned our lives are with the things that truly matter. Life is a story, but not all of us realize that we are the authors of our own narratives. From childhood, we are handed scripts, expectations, roles, and rules written by others, our families, our cultures, our societies. We follow these scripts because they feel safe, familiar, and validated by those around us. But as life unfolds, many of us reach a point where the script no longer fits. The story we've been living starts to feel constrained, inauthentic, or incomplete. It's in these moments that we are faced with a choice: continue reading from a script written for us or rewrite it in our own words. Rewriting the script requires courage, but it also offers a profound freedom, the freedom to live a life that truly reflects who we are. Imagine a woman in her late 40s who has spent the past 2 decades in a marriage that no longer fulfills her. On the outside, her life seems picture perfect: a stable home, successful children, and a loving, dependable partner. But inside, she feels trapped. Over the years, she has sacrificed pieces of herself to maintain harmony in the relationship. Her dreams of traveling the world, pursuing photography, or even just rediscovering her independence have been pushed aside. She stays because it's what is expected, because she fears the judgment of others, and because stepping into the unknown seems overwhelming. One day, however, she decides she can no longer ignore the quiet voice inside her. After much reflection and painful honesty, she chooses to leave the marriage. The decision is met with criticism and skepticism from friends and family. "You're throwing everything away," they tell her. "You're being selfish." But for the first time in years, she feels alive. She sells her house, downsizes her belongings, and buys a one-way ticket to Europe. With a camera in hand, she begins documenting her travels, capturing moments of beauty and connection. Along the way, she rediscovers parts of herself that she thought were lost forever. Her life is no longer defined by someone else's expectations. It's a story she is writing for herself, one chapter at a time. The power to rewrite our own story is one of the most liberating yet challenging aspects of being human. It requires us to confront fears that have kept us stuck, fears of failure, judgment, and the unknown. These fears are deeply ingrained, often rooted in childhood experiences or societal conditioning. For example, a man in his 50s who has spent his entire career in a corporate job might feel a growing dissatisfaction with his work. He has always dreamed of starting his own business, but the idea terrifies him. What if he fails? What if people think he's irresponsible? What if it's too late? These questions keep him tethered to a life that feels safe but unfulfilling. Eventually, he reaches a breaking point. He realizes that the regret of never trying would be far worse than the fear of failure. With careful planning and a leap of faith, he decides to launch a small woodworking business, something he has been passionate about since his youth. The transition is not without challenges. There are moments of doubt, financial strain, and criticism from those who don't understand his decision. But over time, he finds a sense of purpose and satisfaction that his corporate career never provided. His work no longer feels like a grind. It feels like an expression of who he is. The fear of judgment is one of the greatest obstacles to rewriting our stories. We worry about what others will think, whether we'll be seen as reckless, selfish, or foolish. This fear can be paralyzing, keeping us stuck in roles and routines that no longer serve us. But the truth is, the people who judge us are often projecting their own insecurities. Their opinions are based on their fears, not ours. And while seeking approval is a natural human tendency, it's impossible to please everyone. The only approval that truly matters is our own. Authenticity is the antidote to fear. When we live authentically, we are no longer bound by the need to conform or seek validation from others. Authenticity doesn't mean abandoning responsibility or acting on impulse. It means aligning our actions with our values and desires. It's about being honest with ourselves about what we want and having the courage to pursue it, even if it means going against the grain. For some, rewriting the script might mean making bold, visible changes, like changing careers, ending a relationship, or moving to a new city. For others, it might involve more subtle shifts, like setting boundaries, prioritizing self-care, or pursuing a long-neglected hobby. Regardless of the scale, the act of taking control of our narrative is deeply empowering. It reminds us that we are not passive characters in someone else's story. We are the authors of our own. Consider the story of a teacher who spent years dedicating herself to her students, often at the expense of her own needs. She loved teaching, but over time, she began to feel burned out and unappreciated. She realized that her identity had become entirely wrapped up in her role as an educator, leaving little room for her own growth and exploration. After much soul-searching, she decided to take a sabbatical. During that time, she traveled, wrote poetry, and reconnected with her passion for environmental activism. When she returned to teaching, she approached it with a renewed sense of purpose and a healthier balance. By rewriting her script, she not only enriched her own life, but also became a more effective and inspired teacher. The process of rewriting our story often involves letting go of old beliefs, roles, and expectations that no longer serve us. This can be difficult, as it requires us to confront the unknown and release the safety nets we've relied on. But letting go is also a form of freedom. It creates space for new possibilities and allows us to embrace the fullness of who we are. Practical tools can help us navigate this process. Journaling, for example, is a powerful way to explore our thoughts and emotions. Writing prompts like, "What story am I living right now?" or "What story do I want to tell about my life?" can help us gain clarity and identify areas where change is needed. Meditation and mindfulness practices can also help us connect with our inner selves, quieting the noise of external expectations and allowing us to hear our own voice. Therapy or coaching can provide guidance and support, helping us navigate the challenges of change and stay true to our goals. Rewriting our script is not about erasing the past or rejecting the life we've lived so far. It's about building on our experiences, learning from them, and using them as a foundation for growth. Even the parts of our story that feel like failures or mistakes have value. They've shaped who we are and given us the insight and resilience to move forward. By embracing our past and taking responsibility for our future, we can create a narrative that feels authentic and empowering. This process is not always linear or easy. There will be setbacks, doubts, and moments of fear, but each step we take toward authenticity is a victory, no matter how small. And as we rewrite our story, we inspire others to do the same. Our courage becomes a beacon, showing those around us that it's never too late to change, grow, and pursue a life that feels true. Ultimately, rewriting the script is an act of self-liberation. It's about reclaiming our power, taking responsibility for our choices, and creating a life that reflects our deepest values and desires. It's a journey of courage and authenticity, one that leads not only to personal fulfillment, but also to a deeper connection with ourselves and the world around us. The script is ours to write. What will your next chapter say? Midlife often carries a stigma of decline, as if reaching this stage means winding down, losing relevance, or retreating into the background. But in reality, midlife is an extraordinary turning point, a time when life can become richer and more meaningful than ever before. It's a stage where wisdom, accumulated through years of lived experience, becomes the foundation for a deeper sense of fulfillment. The scars of past failures, the triumphs over adversity, and the lessons learned along the way create a reservoir of emotional maturity and resilience that allow us to approach life with newfound clarity and purpose. Think of wisdom as the ability to see life from a broader perspective. In our younger years, it's easy to get caught up in the details. Ambitions, relationships, and societal pressures can consume our energy. We chase goals relentlessly, often without pausing to question whether they align with our true selves. But as we age, we gain the ability to step back and view the bigger picture. We start to understand that life is not a linear race to a fixed destination, but a series of seasons, each with its own challenges and opportunities. This shift in perspective can be profoundly liberating, as it allows us to let go of the need for constant achievement and instead focus on what truly matters. One of the most valuable gifts of midlife is emotional maturity. By the time we reach this stage, most of us have faced our share of setbacks, losses, failures, disappointments, and challenges that tested our strength and forced us to adapt. These experiences, though painful at the time, build resilience. They teach us that we are capable of enduring hardship, that we can bend without breaking, and that growth often emerges from adversity. Emotional maturity allows us to approach life with greater patience and acceptance. We learn to choose our battles, to let go of grudges, and to find peace in imperfection. We stop reacting impulsively to every problem or slight, understanding that not everything demands a response. Consider someone who, in their youth, was consumed by the desire to prove themselves. Perhaps they worked tirelessly to climb the corporate ladder, sacrificing their health and personal relationships in the process. Over time, they begin to realize that the recognition they sought doesn't bring the fulfillment they expected. In midlife, they might decide to redefine their priorities, focusing instead on relationships, health, or creative pursuits. Their younger self might have seen this shift as a step back, but their wiser, older self understands that true success is not about external validation, but about living in alignment with their values. Another hallmark of wisdom is the ability to accept life's uncertainties. In our younger years, we often crave control, striving to plan every detail of our lives. But as we age, we come to terms with the fact that life is unpredictable. Instead of resisting this reality, we learn to embrace it. This acceptance allows us to navigate change with greater ease, adapting to new circumstances and finding opportunities in unexpected places. For example, someone who loses their job in midlife might initially feel devastated, but with time, They might see it as an opportunity to explore a different career path, start a business, or pursue a long-neglected passion. Wisdom enables us to see these turning points not as endings but as beginnings. Midlife is also a time when we begin to focus more on the quality of our relationships. In our earlier years, we might have been preoccupied with building social networks, maintaining appearances, or seeking approval. But as we grow older, we start to prioritize depth over breadth. We invest in relationships that bring genuine connection and joy, letting go of those that drain us or no longer serve us. This shift is often accompanied by a greater sense of gratitude. We become more aware of the fleeting nature of time and cherish the moments we have with loved ones. A quiet evening spent with family or a heartfelt conversation with a friend becomes more meaningful than any extravagant event or accolade. At the same time, midlife offers the chance to reconnect with our passions and explore new possibilities. Many people use this stage as an opportunity to pursue interests they set aside earlier in life. For some, this might mean taking up painting, writing, or playing an instrument. For others, it could involve volunteering, mentoring, or starting a new career altogether. These pursuits are not about achieving perfection or recognition, but about finding joy and fulfillment in the process. The wisdom of midlife teaches us that it's never too late to learn, grow, or start something new. For example, consider someone who spent decades working in finance but always dreamed of becoming a chef. In their 50s, they decide to enroll in culinary school, even though they know it won't lead to a traditional career. Instead of focusing on the outcome, they immerse themselves in the experience, finding joy in the act of creating and sharing meals. This decision might not make sense to others, but it aligns with their inner desires and brings them a sense of purpose they never felt in their previous job. This is the kind of freedom that comes with midlife, the freedom to pursue what makes us happy, without worrying about what others think. Midlife is not a decline but a second act, a chance to rewrite our story with the wisdom we've gained. It's a time to let go of the need to prove ourselves and instead focus on what truly fulfills us. It's about recognizing that our worth is not defined by our accomplishments, but by the love we give and receive, the values we uphold, and the ways we contribute to the world. This stage of life invites us to slow down, reflect, and savor the present moment, finding beauty in the ordinary and joy in the simple. The gift of midlife is the ability to live with intention, to align our actions with our values, and to create a life that feels meaningful and authentic. It's a stage where we can embrace who we are, flaws and all, and find peace in the knowledge that we are enough. By letting go of the need for external validation, we free ourselves to live in a way that feels true to our inner selves. Midlife is not an end, it's a beginning, a time of possibility, growth, and fulfillment that can lead to the most rewarding years of our lives. Life, at its core, is an ongoing journey of discovery, transformation, and self-awareness. Along the way, we adopt roles, wear masks, and pursue goals shaped by external expectations. Yet, within each of us lies a deeper truth, an authentic self waiting to emerge. Through the insights shared, we are reminded that embracing the shadow, redefining priorities, and rewriting our narratives are not merely steps in personal growth, but essential milestones in creating a life that is truly ours. The shadow, as Carl Jung described, represents the parts of ourselves we hide, deny, or suppress. These might include fears, insecurities, or even desires that don't align with the image we project to the world. But ignoring the shadow doesn't make it disappear. It continues to influence our behaviors, decisions, and relationships in ways we may not even realize. The power of embracing the shadow lies in the freedom it grants us. When we confront the aspects of ourselves we've avoided, we not only dissolve the hold they have over us, but also gain a richer understanding of who we are. It's like shining a light into a dark room. We may not like everything we see, but the clarity allows us to navigate our lives with intention. Consider the example of a man who has always avoided confrontation, choosing instead to keep the peace at any cost. Over time, he realizes that this pattern stems from a fear of rejection, a part of his shadow he has never faced. Once he begins to address this fear, He finds the strength to advocate for himself, setting boundaries in his relationships and expressing his needs honestly. His transformation is not about becoming someone else, but about reclaiming the parts of himself that have long been hidden. Redefining priorities is another crucial step on the path to authenticity. In our younger years, we are often driven by external validation, achieving success, gaining recognition, or meeting societal expectations. These pursuits can be fulfilling for a time, but they often lose their appeal as we grow older and begin to question what truly matters. Redefining success means shifting our focus from what the world expects of us to what aligns with our values, passions, and desires. For one person, this might mean prioritizing family and relationships over career advancement. For another, it could mean leaving a lucrative job to pursue a creative passion or dedicate time to a cause they care about. Imagine a woman who has spent decades in a high-powered career, only to realize that the accolades and financial rewards no longer bring her joy. She decides to step away from the corporate world and start a nonprofit focused on mentoring young women in underserved communities. At first, the transition is daunting, and she faces skepticism from those around her. But as she immerses herself in her new role, she discovers a sense of purpose and fulfillment that had been missing from her previous life. Her decision to redefine her priorities allows her to live in alignment with her values, creating a life that feels both meaningful and authentic. The process of rewriting our narrative is perhaps the most liberating yet challenging aspect of personal transformation. It requires us to let go of the stories we've been told and the scripts we've followed, replacing them with narratives that reflect who we truly are. This act of self-authorship is not about erasing the past, but about using our experiences as a foundation for growth. Every setback, every failure, every moment of doubt becomes a stepping stone toward a life that feels uniquely ours. Take, for example, a retired athlete who, after years of living in the spotlight, struggles to find a new sense of identity. For a time, they feel lost, unsure of who they are without their sport. But as they begin to explore other interests, they discover a passion for coaching and mentorship. By helping young athletes navigate their own journeys, they not only find a renewed sense of purpose, but also rewrite their story in a way that honors both their past achievements and their present aspirations. Rewriting the narrative also means facing fears of judgment and failure. It's natural to worry about what others will think or whether we'll succeed in our new endeavors. But the truth is, the opinions of others pale in comparison to the satisfaction of living authentically. When we stop seeking external approval and start listening to our inner voice, we gain the courage to take risks, make bold decisions, and embrace the unknown. As we reflect on these key insights, one message becomes clear. The life we were meant to live begins when we discover who we truly are. This discovery is not a single moment, but an ongoing process. One that requires curiosity, courage, and commitment. It's about asking ourselves the hard questions. What do I value? What brings me joy? What am I willing to let go of to make space for what truly matters? These questions may not have immediate answers, but the act of asking them is a powerful first step. The journey toward authenticity is not without challenges. There will be moments of doubt, fear, and discomfort. But these moments are also opportunities for growth. Every time we face a fear, confront a shadow, or take a step toward our true selves, we become stronger, more resilient, and more connected to our purpose. And as we grow, we inspire others to do the same. Our courage becomes a ripple that extends beyond ourselves, creating a wave of transformation in the lives of those around us. Ultimately, the gift of life is the freedom to choose how we live, what we value, and who we become. This freedom is both a privilege and a responsibility, one that requires us to be intentional about the stories we tell ourselves and the paths we follow. By embracing the shadow, redefining our priorities, and rewriting our narrative, we reclaim this freedom and create a life that feels deeply, authentically ours. The question now is not whether this transformation is possible, but whether we are ready to begin. The life you were meant to live is waiting for you, not in the future, not in the expectations of others, but in the choices you make today. Are you ready to start? As we've explored today, life is not a static script handed to you at birth, it's a living, breathing narrative that you have the power to shape. By embracing your shadow, redefining your priorities, and rewriting your story, you can create a life that feels not only authentic but deeply fulfilling. It's not about perfection or following someone else's blueprint. It's about listening to your inner voice, making courageous choices, and daring to live a life that truly reflects who you are. So, let me leave you with this. The life you were meant to live begins when you discover who you truly are. The question is, are you ready to take that first step? Are you ready to face the shadows, let go of the expectations, and write a story that's yours and yours alone? If the answer is yes, then I want to hear about it. Drop a comment below and share one step you're going to take today to rewrite your story. Let's inspire each other to move forward. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to hit that like button. It really helps the channel grow and reach more people who need this message. If you're not already subscribed, what are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you'll never miss out on future videos that help you live your best life. And if this video resonated with you on a deeper level, consider supporting the channel with a super thanks. Your support helps us keep creating meaningful content for our community, and we're incredibly grateful for every contribution. Thank you for spending this time with me today. Remember, this is your life, your story, and your chance to live authentically. Go out there and make it extraordinary. Until next time, take care, and I'll see you in the next video.